Sometimes God will destroy our plans when He sees that our plans are going to destroy us. Because God sees what you're planning for yourself is going to eventually destroy you. God always has better plans in our lives. God has made you on purpose for a purpose. There are no accidents in God's design. You are not here by chance, and your life is not a random occurrence in the grand scheme of things. God crafted you with intentionality, with a purpose so profound and specific that it's tailored just for you. Every detail, every characteristic, every gift and talent you possess was placed within you for a reason. He didn't make you by mistake. He made you for a divine purpose. So often we question our value. We wonder if we're enough, if we're truly meant to be doing what we're doing, or if our lives really matter in the bigger picture. But let me tell you this, God doesn't make mistakes. If you're breathing, if you're standing here today, it's because He has a plan for you. Your very existence is proof that you are needed, that you are vital to God's greater plan. Sometimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day grind, in our struggles, and in comparing ourselves to others that we lose sight of this truth. We look around and see other people seemingly living out their purpose, thriving, and we feel small. We feel lost. But you see, your purpose isn't meant to look like anyone else's. God's plan for you is unique. Your journey may not look like the person next to you, and that's okay, because God's timing and purpose for you are unlike anyone else's. What you need to understand is that you are equipped for your purpose. Every challenge you faced, every victory you've experienced, every heartache, and every moment of joy has been part of the preparation for what God has called you to do. Nothing is wasted in God's plan. Even the things that feel like setbacks or failures, those moments are shaping you, growing you, making you stronger for the purpose He has in store. God is preparing you even when you don't realize it. But here's the thing, finding your purpose isn't just about sitting back and waiting for a lightning bolt of clarity. It's about stepping forward in faith, even when you're not entirely sure what's next. It's about trusting that as you take each step, God will continue to reveal more of His plan to you. You don't need to have all the answers right now. All you need is faith, faith, faith that God is guiding you, faith that He is using you in ways you can't even see yet, and faith that your life has meaning beyond what you can currently understand. Maybe you're thinking, but what if I don't know my purpose? What if I don't feel like I'm living in it yet? That's okay. Purpose unfolds over time. It's not always something that hits you all at once. Sometimes it's revealed gradually through the small, everyday moments of your life. It could be through a conversation with a friend, an opportunity that comes your way, or a situation that stretches you in ways you didn't expect. But I promise you this, if you keep seeking God, if you keep moving forward in faith, He will show you your purpose. He will make it clear when the time is right. And don't let fear or doubt stop you from pursuing that purpose. So many of us hold back because we think we're not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough. But here's the truth: God has already equipped you with everything you need. Whatever you lack, He will provide. If He's called you to something, He's already given you the tools to succeed. You just have to trust Him and step into it with confidence, knowing that He's with you every step of the way. God's purpose for you isn't small. It's not something insignificant or trivial. It's big, it's meaningful, and it's something that will impact the world in ways you might not even realize. And your purpose is not just about what you do, it's about who you are. It's about the love you show, the kindness you offer, the lives you touch. It's about living in alignment with God's plan and letting His light shine through you. You were created for a reason. Your life has significance, even when you don't feel like it, even when the path seems unclear, even when you face obstacles. Know that God has a plan. He has a purpose for every season of your life, whether it's a season of growth, of waiting, or of action. And in each of those seasons, He is working, molding you, and preparing you for what's next. So don't be discouraged if you haven't figured it all out yet. Keep seeking, keep believing, and keep trusting. God's purpose for you will unfold in His perfect timing. And when it does, it will be greater than anything you could have ever imagined for yourself. Because when you're living in alignment with God's purpose, there is peace, there is fulfillment, and there is joy that surpasses all understanding. Remember, you are here on purpose. You are not a mistake. You are not insignificant. You are chosen, called, and created by God for something greater. And when you start living in that truth, when you start embracing the fact that God made you for a reason, your life will change. You'll move through the world with a sense of purpose, with confidence, and with the knowledge that God's hand is on your life. God has made you on purpose for a purpose, and that purpose is uniquely yours. It's time to step into it. Trust Him, follow His lead, and watch how He uses you to make an impact in this world. You are here for a reason, and your life matters more than you know. Prayers don't always get answered the way we want them to, but God always delivers what we need. Be patient and trust God. You know, life has a funny way of showing us what we need versus what we want. How many times have you prayed for something you felt you couldn't live without? Maybe it was that promotion you thought would change your life, or maybe it was healing in a way you couldn't quite understand at the time. You prayed and prayed, hoping that the answer would come exactly how you envisioned it. But then the response didn't look like what you expected. And that's where the real lesson begins. You see, when we pray, we often come to God with a list like a child asking for their favorite toy, expecting it to show up wrapped in a perfect little bow. But God isn't in the business of simply granting our wishes. God is in the business of growth, of building you into the person you were meant to become. And sometimes that means the answer to your prayer looks completely different from what you had in mind. Maybe that promotion wasn't right for you because God knew there was a better opportunity ahead. Maybe that healing wasn't physical because your soul needed more mending than your body. Maybe that closed door was the protection you didn't even realize you needed. Here's the thing, patience and trust in God are not just virtues, they are essential to the journey. When you pray, you have to understand that God hears you, every whisper, every cry, every word. But His timing and His way of answering may not align with your calendar or your checklist. And that's okay, because God's timing is always perfect. Think of the moments in your life when things didn't go as planned, when you felt lost, disappointed, or even abandoned. Maybe you asked yourself, where is God in all of this? But here's the truth, you were never abandoned. You were being guided, shaped, prepared for something greater. God doesn't just give us what we ask for, He gives us what we need. And sometimes what we need is patience, endurance, or faith. Sometimes the very thing you prayed for is on the way, but it's going to show up differently than you imagined, because God knows what will truly fill the emptiness inside of you. It's hard, isn't it, to wait, to trust, to believe in something you can't see yet. But that's where faith comes in. Faith is not about always getting what you want, but about trusting that what you receive is exactly what your soul needs. Faith is about surrendering your timeline and trusting in God's process. Because when you do, you realize that God's plan for you is so much bigger than your own. And that plan requires patience. You know, patience isn't just about waiting. It's about what you do while you wait. It's about how you carry yourself in those moments of uncertainty, in those seasons of silence. When you're patient, you're saying to God, I trust you. I trust that you know better than I do. I trust that your timing is greater than my sense of urgency, and in that trust you find peace. And let's talk about trust for a minute. Trust is one of the hardest things to cultivate because it requires you to let go of control. It asks you to stop wrestling with life, to stop trying to force things to happen on your own terms. Trusting God means saying, even if this doesn't go my way, even if I don't understand why this is happening, I believe that there is a purpose greater than my pain. I believe that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything in my favor, even when I can't see it. When you look back at your life, you'll see the places where you thought you were being denied, but you were really being redirected. You'll see that the detours weren't delays, they were divine directions leading you towards something better. Because God doesn't withhold blessings from us, He prepares us for them. So when you feel like your prayers are going unanswered, take a step back and ask yourself, what is God teaching me in this season? Is He teaching me patience, trust, resilience? Sometimes the delay is the answer. Sometimes the quiet is where you find your greatest strength. And sometimes what feels like a no is actually God's way of saying, not yet, my child. Something better is coming. I want you to remember this: God always delivers. It may not be in the package you were expecting, but it will always be exactly what you need. Maybe today you're waiting on something, a breakthrough, a miracle, a dream. And maybe you're feeling frustrated because it hasn't happened yet. But I promise you, when you put your trust in God, you'll find that the waiting isn't wasted. Every moment is preparing you for what's coming next. God's blessings are on the way, but you have to be willing to trust the process, to stay patient, and to keep the faith. So the next time you pray, don't just ask for what you want. Ask for the strength to trust God's plan, the patience to wait for His timing, and the faith to believe that what's meant for you will never pass you by. Because it won't. God is faithful, and He is working in ways you can't even imagine. Be patient, trust Him, and watch as your life unfolds in ways you never thought possible. Always remember, God will give you direction about your situation, not confusion. Ask God for peace. You know, life can be overwhelming at times. We face decisions, challenges, and uncertainties that make us feel lost, unsure of which path to take. In those moments, it's easy to get consumed by fear and doubt. We start questioning everything ourselves, our choices, even our faith. But here's something we must never forget: God does not bring confusion, God brings clarity. When you feel confused, when life feels like it's spinning out of control, that's not coming from God. Confusion is not His language. It's the noise of the world, the distractions that pull you away from His voice. God's voice is calm, it's still, and it's always guiding you toward peace and purpose. When you lean into Him, when you take the time to truly listen, you'll find that God is never unclear. He may not give you all the answers at once, but He'll always provide direction. God doesn't lead you into chaos, He leads you through it. How often do we find ourselves overwhelmed by choices, unsure of what to do next? We ask ourselves, should I go left or right? Should I stay or leave? Should I say yes or no? And in the middle of that storm, we forget that there's only one place where real peace can be found: in God. It's in those moments that we have to stop, pause, and ask for His guidance. Because God doesn't just want you to move for the sake of moving, He wants you to move in the right direction. And He'll guide you, but you have to be willing to ask for that direction. Think about it. When you're driving in an unfamiliar place and you get lost, what's the first thing you do? You stop and ask for directions. And that's exactly what we need to do with God. When life gets overwhelming, stop and ask for His direction. Ask Him to show you the way. And He will. He will light your path, but you have to be still enough to see the light. Now let's talk about peace. Peace is not the absence of problems, it's the presence of God in the middle of your problems. We often think that peace means everything in our life will be smooth, that we won't have any struggles. But that's not true peace. True peace comes from knowing that no matter what you're facing, God is with you. It's knowing that even in the chaos, there's a calm in your spirit because you trust that God is in control. But here's the thing about peace: it's something you have to ask for. It's something you have to seek. The world will offer you all kinds of counterfeit versions of peace, things that promise relief but leave you feeling empty. Whether it's material success, relationships, or even distractions, nothing compares to the peace that God offers. That peace, the kind that surpasses all understanding, is something only He can give. And when you ask for it, when you sincerely seek it, God will deliver it to your heart. He will settle your soul and quiet the storm within you. So when you're feeling lost, when your mind is racing with doubts, when confusion starts creeping in, I want you to remember this: God is not the author of confusion. If you're feeling unsettled, anxious, or unsure, that's a sign that it's time to step back and seek His voice. It's time to pray for peace, to pray for clarity. Because God's peace isn't just a momentary feeling, it's a deep, abiding presence that stays with you through every high and low, every uncertainty and challenge. When you're grounded in God's peace, nothing can shake you. There will be moments in your life when you feel like you're walking through fog, where nothing seems clear and every direction feels wrong. And in those moments, the temptation is to act out of fear, to make decisions based on anxiety. But that's not where your answers lie. The answers come when you get quiet, when you make room for God to speak to you. You see, God doesn't yell over the noise. He speaks in the quiet moments when your heart is still enough to hear Him. And what He gives you in those moments isn't more questions, it's clarity, it's direction, it's peace. You may not always get the answer you're looking for immediately. Sometimes God's direction is about patience, about waiting for the right moment. But even in the waiting, there's peace. Even when the answers aren't clear yet, you can rest knowing that God is in control. Because the truth is, God knows exactly where you need to go, even when you don't. He sees the bigger picture, He knows the outcome, and He's leading you toward it. You just have to trust Him enough to follow, even when the path doesn't make sense right away. So, my friends, if you find yourself confused or overwhelmed, if the weight of your decisions feels too heavy to carry, I encourage you to pause. Take a moment to ask God for direction. Ask Him for peace. And then trust that He will guide you. Trust that His plan is better than anything you could have designed for yourself. Because when you place your life in God's hands, there is no confusion, no chaos, there is only peace and purpose. God will always give you direction. It may not come in the form you expect, but it will come, and it will come with peace. So don't be afraid to ask for it. Don't be afraid to lean on Him when the path ahead looks uncertain. He's not only the guide, but also the giver of the peace your heart seeks. And when you ask Him for that peace, when you truly surrender your fears and anxieties to Him, you'll find that the confusion begins to fade, replaced by the assurance that you are right where you need to be. Trust God. Ask for peace, and He will give it to you. God knows the right time, the right place, the right person, and the right answer to your prayers. Trust Him. There's a profound truth in those words, God knows. He knows more than we can ever understand or predict for ourselves. We often think we've got life figured out, that we know exactly what we need and when we need it. But time and time again, life reminds us of something so powerful that our understanding is limited. We see the world through the narrow lens of our own desires and expectations, but God sees everything. He sees the full picture, the plan, the divine orchestration of how your life is unfolding. And it's not just about giving you what you ask for in the moment, it's about giving you what you truly need at the exact right time. You see, there's a big difference between our timing and God's timing. We're impatient by nature, aren't we? We want things now. We want our prayers answered immediately, as if God is operating on our schedule. But the beauty of God's timing is that it's always perfect. Even when it feels like you're waiting forever, even when the silence feels deafening, trust this: God is never late. He knows the exact moment when things need to happen in your life. Think about it. How many times have you looked back on something you wanted desperately, but now you can see why it didn't happen at that time? Maybe the job you thought was your dream wasn't right for you because God had a better one waiting. Maybe the relationship you prayed for wasn't meant for you because God was preparing your heart for someone far better. Every delay, every detour, every not yet is part of a greater plan that we may not fully understand in the moment, but God does. When we pray, we often focus on the outcome, what we think the answer should be. But prayer is about surrendering our will and trusting that God knows best. It's about understanding that sometimes the answer to our prayer is a gentle wait. I've got something better for you. It's not about whether God hears us, it's about whether we trust him enough to believe that his timing, his way is always better than ours. And it's not just about the right time, it's also about the right place. You may be praying for a blessing, but maybe you're not in the right position to receive it yet. Maybe you're still growing, still learning, still becoming the person who will be ready to step into that blessing when it arrives. God isn't just concerned with giving you what you want, he's concerned with your growth. He's more interested in your transformation than your immediate gratification. And sometimes he'll withhold something until you're ready to fully embrace it. There's a process happening. You may not see it, but behind the scenes, God is working. He's aligning everything in your life, orchestrating circumstances, moving pieces you can't even see. And when the time is right, when you're ready, when the situation is ready, he'll open the door. But here's the thing, you have to trust him in the waiting. You have to trust that he knows the exact right moment to bring your breakthrough, because when he does, it will be better than anything you could have imagined. And let's talk about the right people. Have you ever prayed for someone to stay in your life only to realize later that they weren't meant to be there? It's tough, isn't it? But God knows who belongs in your life and who doesn't. Sometimes we hold on to people or situations that aren't serving our growth, and God in his wisdom removes them to make room for something better. Trust that the people who are meant to walk with you on this journey will come at the right time. You don't have to force it. The right relationships, the right partnerships, they're already written in God's plan for you. And when it comes to the answer to your prayers, understand this: God doesn't always give us what we want, but he always gives us what we need. There's a peace that comes when you release control, when you stop trying to manipulate outcomes and simply trust that God's answer, whether it's yes, no, or wait, is always for your good. You might not understand it at the moment, but in time you will. God's answers aren't random, they are deliberate, intentional, and crafted with your best interests in mind. So how do we cultivate that kind of trust? How do we let go of our timeline, our desires, and rest in the knowledge that God's plan is perfect? It starts with faith. Faith isn't about seeing the whole picture, it's about believing that even though you can't see it, God is still moving. Faith is trusting the process, even when the road feels long. It's saying, God, I don't know how this will work out, but I trust that you do. I don't see the way forward, but I believe that you've already made a way. You have to remind yourself daily that God has a plan for your life, a plan that is bigger and better than anything you could ever imagine. And that plan is unfolding with every step you take, every prayer you pray, and every act of trust you place in him. God knows the right time, the right place, the right person, and the right answer. So when things don't happen the way you expected, don't lose hope. Don't lose faith. Because the answer is on its way. Trust him. Not just when things are going well, but even when the road gets tough. Trust that the delays are divine, the detours are part of the journey, and the waiting is where your strength is built. Trust that God's timing is perfect. His placement is intentional, his people are purposeful, and his answers are exactly what you need. Your breakthrough is coming. It might not look like what you expected, but I promise you, when you trust in God's timing, you'll see that it was exactly what your heart, your soul, and your life needed. Maybe God interrupted your plans because he saw your plans were about to ruin you. Sometimes life doesn't unfold the way we expect it to. We make plans, big plans filled with hope and excitement about the future. We envision how things will work out, how we'll achieve our goals, and how everything will fall into place just as we've dreamed. But more often than not, those plans don't come to fruition the way we thought they would. And we find ourselves frustrated, confused, or even devastated. But beloved, what if I told you that sometimes the interruptions, the setbacks, and the detours are not signs that life is against you? What if instead they are signs that God is for you? What if the very things you think are holding you back are actually God's protection in disguise? You see, in our human nature, we tend to have this mindset that we know what's best for us. We make decisions based on what we think we want, what we think will bring us happiness, or what we think will lead to success. We look at the path ahead and assume it's the right one, and when things don't go as planned, we question everything. We ask, why did this happen? Why is my life not going the way I imagined? But here's the truth: God sees the bigger picture. He sees what we cannot see. He knows the plans he has for us. And those plans are often far better than what we could ever imagine for ourselves. God sees the road ahead, the obstacles, the heartbreak, and the pitfalls that might lie in our path. And when we think we're walking towards something good, He sometimes steps in, interrupting our plans to protect us from what we can't yet see. We might not understand it in the moment, and we might not always agree with the direction our life takes, but what if God was protecting you from something that could have destroyed you? What if He stepped in and shifted your course because He knew the road you were on wasn't going to lead you to the happiness, fulfillment, or peace you were seeking? We tend to make plans that are driven by our own desires, but we often forget that our desires don't always align with God's purpose for our lives. God's plans are greater. He knows the desires of your heart, and sometimes the things you think you want are not what you truly need. That job you were so set on might have led to burnout. That relationship you were working so hard to make happen might have been a source of heartache. That path you thought would bring you success might have led to a place of emptiness. God's interruptions in our lives are often merciful redirections. He doesn't interfere to harm us. No, He steps in because He loves us too much to allow us to walk down a path that will hurt us. And while we may not understand His reasoning in the moment, we must trust that He knows what's best. Let me ask you, how many times have you looked back on your life and seen that the moments you thought were failures or disappointments were actually blessings in disguise? How many times have you questioned the setback, only to realize years later that it was the very thing that saved you? What if God has been protecting you all along? What if that job you didn't get, that relationship that fell apart, or that dream that didn't come true was God stepping in and saying, "Not yet," or "This isn't for you"? God's interruptions are not denials, they are divine redirections. He knows where you need to be. He knows what you need to avoid. And when He steps in to adjust your plans, it's because He's giving you the opportunity to experience something better, something greater. It's hard to see it in the moment. When your plans are disrupted, it's natural to feel frustration, confusion, and even anger. You feel like your control over your life is slipping away, and that can be terrifying. But in those moments, instead of resisting the change, what if you leaned into it? What if you took a step back and allowed God to lead you to something better? Sometimes the very things we think are going to ruin us, the delays, the disappointments, the changes in direction, are the things that are setting us up for our breakthrough. Maybe that job that didn't work out is preparing you for something bigger. Maybe that relationship that ended was freeing you up to meet someone who's meant to walk with you on a journey of love and purpose. Maybe that dream that fell apart was giving you the space and time to discover a passion that's even more aligned with your true calling. You don't have to understand it all right now. In fact, most of the time you won't understand it all. But I encourage you to trust that God is in control, and that His plans are for your good. His love for you is greater than your understanding, and He sees your future in its fullness, even when you can't. In times of disruption, remember that God is always working behind the scenes on your behalf. Even when things don't go the way you expect, He's moving in ways you cannot see. He's rearranging circumstances, closing doors that weren't meant for you, and opening new ones that are aligned with your purpose. What may seem like a setback is simply a setup for something better. So instead of being frustrated by life's interruptions, take a deep breath and trust the process. Embrace the redirection. Know that God is guiding you to a place of greater peace, fulfillment, and purpose than you could ever have planned for yourself. In those moments when your plans fall apart, remember that He's not abandoning you, He's simply guiding you toward what's meant to be. In the end, the most important thing is to trust God's wisdom over your own. He's the author of your life, and He knows the exact path you need to take. When God interrupts your plans, He's stepping in to ensure that you don't end up where you weren't meant to be. And while the process might be uncomfortable, it is, in fact, an act of His love, a love that will never steer you wrong. Someday you will finally say, "God, this is what I prayed for, thank you." There will come a moment in your life, a moment so powerful, so transformative, that you'll look back on the journey you've been on, the highs, the lows, the detours, the heartbreaks, and you'll realize something profound. Everything led you exactly where you were meant to be. You'll take a breath, look around, and in the quietness of your soul, you'll find yourself whispering, "God, this is what I prayed for. Thank you." In this moment, you'll understand that every single experience, every challenge, And every change in direction has brought you to this place, this exact space where everything feels aligned. Your prayers were heard. They were answered. But not in the way you imagined. God's timing is never early, and it's never late. It's always perfect. You see, we often pray for specific outcomes, whether it's a job, a relationship, a situation that will make our lives easier. We envision the path we want, and we think we know exactly how we want our prayers to be answered. But God knows better. He knows the timing, the right circumstances, and the exact sequence of events that will bring you closer to your true purpose. It's in the waiting, the uncertainty, and the moments of doubt that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating everything with divine precision. And while we may not see it in real time, we're learning to trust that His way is better than our way. As the days go by and the prayers go unanswered in the way we expected, it can be easy to feel discouraged. We may wonder if God is listening, if He even cares. But the truth is, He cares more than we can imagine. His love is so deep, so intentional, that He's willing to delay our desires if it means keeping us in alignment with our destiny. Sometimes the blessings we desire can be too much too soon, or simply not in our best interest at this point in our journey. But then eventually things begin to make sense. You begin to see the dots connect, the heartbreak that led you to strength, the failures that brought you wisdom, and the moments of uncertainty that taught you to lean on faith. God's plan is always greater than anything we could have ever dreamt up. And when that moment finally comes, when the prayers you've whispered for years are answered in a way that surpasses your wildest dreams, you'll realize that the waiting was worth it. You'll see that God was never ignoring your prayers, but rather guiding them in the direction that would bring you the most peace, the most growth, and the most fulfillment. You'll look at the blessings around you, the relationships, the opportunities, the sense of purpose, and you'll understand that they were all a part of the grand design, the answer to your prayers, and more beautiful than anything you could have asked for. And in that quiet, profound moment, all you will be able to do is thank God for His wisdom, His grace, and His love. It's in those moments of reflection that you'll finally be able to say with certainty, God, this is what I prayed for. Thank you. Because now you see it, the intricate way He's woven every thread of your life together, the perfect timing, the perfect place, and the perfect people that He's brought into your story. It was always meant to be.